Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Betsy Minnich, and wanted to thank you, first of all, for joining our seminar or our webinar today on easy data visualization for public libraries. I can give you a little bit of a background about PolicyMap and how we can help you and your libraries to get access to our data so that you can provide more value to the communities you serve. First of all, I'll start by introducing myself to you. My name, as I said, is Betsy Minnich. I've been working for PolicyMap for about 4 years, but I am a librarian myself, and I have worked in my local public library, and I've served on the board of my local public library. So I feel like I have a pretty good grasp of the type of data that is important to you and the people that you are working with. So that being said, I can provide you with my contact information. If you have any questions during our webinar, please certainly feel free to ask questions. And additionally, we will be recording this so that if you wanted to go back and review, you can go back to our YouTube channel and see exactly what is there. For those of you who might not be familiar with PolicyMap, PolicyMap was born as a service of Reinvestment Fund, which is a community development financial institution based in Philadelphia. And you will see that a lot of the people who work with PolicyMap work with our data and work with our mapping tool because it's a simple, uncomplicated way to view data on a map or in a report, or view that data within a spreadsheet and download that data for use in other tools. So I will do my best to show you exactly what data is there and the functionality, and really show you how easy it can be for you as library directors, administrators, anybody in a position in the library to get information that you're looking for about the community that you serve. So let me first start here and show you from our main page that we do have a complete list of our indicators that can be downloaded. PolicyMap has a data team located here in Philadelphia that is constantly looking for new sources of data, but the data that they do get is both public data and proprietary data. And the data is related to these different sets. So data related to demographics, incomes and spending, housing, lending, quality of life. And you'll notice from this page that you can see exactly how granular the data is, how far back the data goes, and exactly where we're collecting this data from. A lot of the data, and this is often a question that we do get, is open data or data that you may feel that you can get easily from other resources. But what we found is that we are doing a great job of cleaning and standardizing and curating this data so that, in fact, many government organizations come to PolicyMap to use the data that our team has cleaned up. So keep that in mind, that that's the data here. If you have questions about how PolicyMap is being used by other organizations, we do have a page here for public libraries. And after my webinar, if you do have an interest, we do offer free trials as well. So from our public library page, you can see that you can sign up for a free trial. Additionally, if you like to know that we have access to research and support, PolicyMap does provide twice weekly public seminars, but we also have many tutorial guides and a training calendar and videos and guides to help you with any questions that may come up. Additionally, we do have our data team and our team here in Philadelphia to answer any questions you may have about functionality. And finally, if you don't already, I encourage you to sign up for our blog, giving you information about the real-life applications of the data that you're going to be looking at today. I certainly won't be showing you every single data set and every single thing that is here, but you'll want to see exactly about healthy food access or predicting chronic diseases or housing trends, anything that affects a community and that might affect your library. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up a map so I can show you exactly what is there. As an aside, I'd wanted to tell you that I did have the ability to take a look at some of the Public Library Association's statement of ambition. And I've seen that a lot of what is happening is that libraries need to shift from being not just library-centered, but to a more community-centered approach. And that you're going to need to use data to measure and understand the impact of your library. So it's my hope that I can show you some of the data that's here and how you can do that. You'll notice at the top left-hand side of your PolicyMap page is that these are the different features of PolicyMap. So there are maps, tables, reports, 3-layer maps, and the data loader. So you can upload your own address level data to this map. You'll note here that here are the categories that I spoke of before. So there's demographic data, incomes and spending, housing data. As we move into housing and lending and quality of life, you'll see that there's not only data in layers, but there's also data points. But let's start off in something simple, just looking at demographic data. And maybe I just wanted to take a look at something as simple as population density. And you'll notice that I'm looking at this data for the entire United States. But from my location toolbar, I can search right down to the block group or census tract level. So if what I wanted to do was just take a look at this for Rochester, New York, I can take a look at the city of Rochester, and I have a map that is draggable. I can zoom in, and I can go all the way down to that level. And when I click on an area, it's going to give me a legend that will show me exactly what the figures are for that specific block group. So here we have the count for population density for this block group, and again. So while we're in Rochester, let's take a look at some of the other demographic data that we have here. So there's data related to race. If I'm just looking for the non-white population within Rochester, I can take a look at this. If I want to take a look at the number of women or men within an area or people with disabilities, maybe I'm looking for people with disabilities 65 or older or less than 5. I can quickly and easily pull up those figures. And you'll notice that you can always download this data or see it in a table or get a report for the areas that you click on within our map. You'll also note that you have the ability to change the variable from percent to number or how you're shading that data. And you can also look at trends over time with specific data sets. If I wanted to take a look at the veteran population, I can do that by poverty status, by race, by ethnicity. Here's a really, really fun indicator, and that is language. Language spoken excluding English and Spanish. It's a very colorful map, so sorry if I shocked anyone there. But if you take a look, you can see this area right here in the southeast corner of Rochester is a Slavic language. Right here, you can see the different ethnic enclaves. So here's the Japanese area. Really is helpful when you're looking at information about what the population or your community looks like within your library community. So that's a great one. And I'm going to show you that we were looking at language, but you can also go ahead and you can take a look at the libraries that are here. And you'll note that we're looking at these libraries on a map, and we can color code those and see exactly what's there. You probably already know what libraries are there within your community. But if I click on any one of these, it's going to show me exactly this is Rochester Public Library. It's going to tell me what system it's in. It's going to show me the numbers of weeks and all the other data. And you'll note also that we do try and be extremely transparent about where the data is coming from. And so the source is always in the legend, and this is coming from IMLS. So as we're exploring this demographic data a little bit more, you can see there's information related to the foreign board populations that are here. And you can go and do a search by specific countries. You can take a look at immigration data, migration data, and homelessness, sheltered or unsheltered. And in this case, this data is better looked at, zoomed out because it's not collected on a block root level. So you can see what's there. Now let's go to another city, and I thought maybe we'd take a look at Chicago. And in the Chicago area, you'll note that you can go ahead again and just put in the specific city that you're looking for. If you're looking for a specific county, if I just want it Cook County, I could go in and even just search by my zip code. And from here, I can take a look at some of the other data that's here for PolicyMap. So under incomes and spending, we'll have information related to income. So the per capita income, people in poverty, families in poverty, and persistent poverty tracts. And for here, I can really zoom in and see exactly what's there. And pull out those tracts. And here I could also download this data. So if I needed a list of the persistent poverty tracts in the Chicago area, I can do that. Now you'll note up on the upper right-hand corner that you do have the ability to print, download, share this data. If I download this data from here, it will allow me to pull that out, and I can choose my regions. So I can do it by census tract, I can do it for any of my custom regions that I might have created, or I can do it just for the Chicago area and pull that out. Actually, I made a mistake because I did that for just for that tract, but I can download data for the entire country if I needed that data. So hopefully, as we're going through some of the data sets that are here and some of the attributes that you can put on top of these data sets, you're noticing some applications for your own personal use or for your library's use. So here under incomes and spending, again, we have persistent poverty tracts. Maybe I wanted to look at where there are a large number of people less than 5 years of age living in poverty. And then maybe I wanted to take a look and see where there are Head Start centers and pull that out. And if I'd wanted to, I can draw an area on a map and pull down those Head Start centers. So I'm going to draw a custom region. And I'll go ahead and I'm just going to click and create a polygon for this area in Chicago. And come on. And now I'm just going to call this maybe my area of analysis. I'll save this data. And when I click on that, I can go ahead and see a list of the Head Start centers very quickly and easily with a lot of great data here. And I can download all this data into a spreadsheet. So just a really simple way to pull out data for the area that you're working in. So you'll see that not only are the data layers a great way to visualize what's happening in a specific community, but the data points allow you to see what services are available to the people within your community as well. And you can add an unlimited amount of data points as well. So under incomes and spending, you'll see information not only about poverty levels or income levels, you'll see information about federal tax returns and retirement income, which might be helpful for those who are in outreach or looking for those neighborhoods or areas within your area where you can look for people who are more likely to support your library. There's also the Gini Index. So if I'm going to take a look at the Gini Index, and in this case, we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at Philadelphia. And I can look at the city or the county. And you'll note that here in the Philadelphia area, the areas of darker intensity will have households with a larger amount of people with an income less, or a large amount of households with an income less than $25,000. If you ever have a question about exactly what this index is and what it measures, again, we do try to be extremely transparent and give really well thought out definitions of exactly what the Gini Index measures. And it's income distribution, but there's an extensive description right there. So here we have the Gini Index. We also have information about location affordability. So maybe I'm looking about location affordability for median income families or very low income individual. I wanted to see where there are affordable housing units or housing cost burdens. Where in the Philadelphia area are homeowners cost burdened? And you can look at that in many different ways. So if I'm looking for senior citizens where there are house burdened homeowners, we can see for this census tract in the Philadelphia area, over 40% of the residents who live here who are homeowners are house burdened, or who are cost burdened, pardon me. So like I said, there's lots and lots of new information here. There's also information about housing units, about the age of the home, about housing quality. So if I was looking for areas where the homes were built pre-1940, because maybe I'm interested in where there might be lead paint in homes, so I can do some community outreach and maybe some user education. I can do that as well. So there's housing quality, quality related to whether or not there are plumbing facilities or kitchen facilities. And there's even data here about new building permits. Now, our housing data was recently uploaded, and it's underpinned with data from Zillow. So that's something you can take a look at one of our recent blogs. And this is right now county level data. Let me move in because I know that there's a lot to cover, but I just want to show you there is also data about lending, information about Community Development Financial Institute investments, information about new market tax credit investments. So if I'd wanted to take a look at projects that are happening in my area, I can see that as well. I can find information about mortgage loans by race or ethnicity in my area. So keep that in mind. There's also information about banking, where bank branches are or credit union branches are. So you can see where there are areas within your community where there might not be access to banking. So that's always interesting. And there's also another interesting set in here. And while I mentioned before that most of our data is current data, so you can see what's happening in your community in present time, there's also the historic lending boundaries. And for here, if I zoom into Philadelphia, you'll see that these are the historic homeowners loan risk corporation maps. And it's basically the redlining that was done back during the Great Depression. And sometimes it's interesting to look at this data if you're looking at information related to poverty levels. So maybe I wanted to see people in poverty who are African American. And for here, I can see where this really becomes an interesting map, where you can see these red lines actually became a sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. There's also an interesting map that was shared with us by one of our colleagues who's a university professor who teaches a class on PolicyMap. And he showed that not only is this interesting, but it's also interesting to look at this and the brownfields and Superfund sites in a specific area. So you'll also notice that there will be more brownfields in this area where there's a larger percentage of people who are African American who are living in poverty. So really some interesting maps, and hopefully you're beginning to see some of the applications that are there. So as we move down the categories of data here within PolicyMap, you'll notice that there is information related to crime, information related to digital access, so access to broadband, the availability and competition, and the speed of the technology. There's information about access to transit and transit density. Information about commute time to work, how many vehicles per household. So keep that in mind. Information about energy use. And one of our special areas of strength is food access. So reinvestment fund is where I mentioned we are born from. There's a lot of information on PolicyMap about areas of limited supermarket access. So let's go to another city. You can see for the city of Philadelphia that this indeed, there's definitely some areas with limited supermarket access, but we can also take a look at maybe Kansas City, and we can take a look at Missouri or Kansas. We'll go in here, and again, we can zoom in and find these areas where there's limited supermarket access. On top of that, I can take a look at where the grocery retail locations are, and I can filter this data. So maybe I just wanted to see whether or not it's a limited service or full service supermarket. And you'll notice that here within these purple areas of limited supermarket access, you're going to have smaller markets where there might not be fresh fruits and vegetables. There might be more packaged foods. So it really is telling. If I'd wanted to share this with people in my community, there's a number of ways I can do this. So I can print this and get a very high quality image. Again, I can zoom in and out. I can drag that around while I'm working on this print. I can change the title and I can export this high quality image. Or I can go ahead and I can share this if I want. So if I just want to share the limited supermarket access data, I can go ahead. Ooh, I have a custom region. I'm going to reset my map, and then in my next example, I'll show you how you can share your data. So let's reset. And this is a great tool for anybody who eventually does plan to use PolicyMap. There's a little reset button, so you can start all over and see exactly what's there. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the data that's here. Quality of life definitely has some really interesting data sets, but keep in mind there's a lot of data related to the economy as well. What jobs are there within your area? The jobs by industry, jobs and wages by industry. So lots of really interesting information. Business vacancies, government spending within the area. So contracts for the Department of Education, contracts from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And in addition, if you wanted to just get a list of the small business development centers, this is here as well. And if you wanted to see where your bridges are that you shouldn't be going over on your commute to and from work, you can take a look at that as well right here. So knowing that libraries are deeply associated with and work with education, there's a lot of really important data sets related to education as well. So we have data related to school enrollment, data related to educational attainment, education attainment by race, and school district statistics as well. Information about the student population, English language learners, special education students, students who are receiving free and reduced lunches, revenue and expenditure data. So keep that in mind that this data is here to be looked at, download it, and you can upload your own data as well. So here, if I just take a look at something like educational attainment, and maybe I'm looking for areas with less than a 9th grade education, and maybe I just wanted to take a look at, let's see, we'll go into, let's take a look at San Diego. Oops, I'm in the wrong field. I'm going to go over here. And here I am looking at the city of San Diego. Again, I can zoom in. And from here, I can also take a look at what schools are there and school performance. And this data comes directly from great schools. Again, I can filter this data and I can color code this data. And I can see on a scale of 1 to 10 which schools are highly rated and which schools are not so highly rated. where the reds are the ones that are not so great and the blues are the excellent schools. And you'll note that in areas where there's lower educational attainment, there are less great schools in that area. If I click on this data, I'm going to be able to see exactly what school this is, what the rating is, test scores, and where there's area for improvement. Again, lots of amazing, great data for this area. So lots of data related to education. Maybe if I wasn't just looking at school performance, maybe I wanted to take a look at public school information. There's information about enrollment and demographics. There's even information about teachers and discipline within specific public schools. If I take a look at this, I can again filter this data out. Maybe I'm just looking for where all the vocational schools are, where all the alternative schools are, or special education schools. I can do that as well. And I can see exactly what's there. I can see the grades offered, the student-teacher ratio, enrollment, the demographics. Again, lots of good data. And if I want it, I can download this data. So from here, I can download this layer of the percent of population with less than 9th grade education. I can join that with the points of the public schools by choosing the third option on the right-hand side. Next, I can choose my location. So if I'd want it to go ahead and do this for the whole city, and I can download that data into a CSV spreadsheet. And that will show up on my screen. So the other interesting thing here is that you can create your own custom regions. So as a library, you might have specific areas, or you might be looking for a radius around your library, because even though there might be county lines or school district lines or township lines, people are using your libraries who might not necessarily be within your city or county. So the ability to be able to go in and get a report or see information for the area around your library is really one of the incredible features that we have. So if I was going to go ahead, and once again, I'll take a look at what libraries are there. And I'm going to click on this library. Maybe I want to go, you know what, let's go into another city. Let's take a look at Shreveport, Louisiana. And again, I can pull out the libraries that are here. And if I click on this, I see the bookmobiles are there. I can see this is the Wallette branch. If I filter this, I wanted to take a look at the central libraries. And here I can see this is the Bossier Parish Library. I can get a radius report for the area around this library. So we talked a little bit about how you can create these maps, but we haven't talked about how you can go in and create reports for the area around your library. And this is useful for community needs assessments, for grant applications. And I could do this, maybe for a 5-mile radius around my library, and generate this report, which is dynamic, which is automatically pulling out all of the underlying data from PolicyMap. So from here, I'm going to see the census tracts. Within here, I'm going to see information about my library system. I'm going to see information about the school districts that I'm serving. I can take a look at population trends. I can take a look at the racial characteristics and compare them not only to the area that I'm serving, but the entire state of Louisiana. I can take a look at the age distribution. So the majority of people living in this area are between the working age of 18 to 64. I can take a look at income levels. And it's broken down not only by the report area, but you can make comparisons to the county and to the state. I can take a look at the family composition. How many single with children families are there? How many single family female families are there with children? So you see that I just simply and easily clicked on that and clicked on Generate Report, but I'm pulling out a tremendous amount of valuable information. Information about the housing within this area, information about vacancy rates within this area as they're changing over time, employment data and unemployment data, the industries that are within this area, crime data. So you'll see that this is really a simple and easy way for you to go ahead and pull out data about your community. So reports are really, really fascinating, and they can be done not only as a community profile report, but we also have something called a community health report. And before I get too far into it, I'm going to just show you or tell you right now that right now, this is data that's available on a county level. However, within the near future, it will be for any area that is drawn on a map. So I'll go ahead and I'll take a look at Prince George's County, Maryland, and generate this report. And I wanted to show you this report. It's especially great because it's really the next generation of PolicyMap's reports. And within this report, we worked with some of our subscribers who told us exactly the type of data that they're looking at and pulling out when they're looking at community health needs. So you'll notice that there's data related to the population, access to health care, health behaviors, general health, morbidity, mortality rates, food security data, and the social determinants of health. So you'll see there's data related to the population that can be easily downloaded for your own use. Population changes over time. So Prince George's County has grown by 12% since the year 2000. The population by age, 22% or 23% of the population within Prince George's is less than 18. All really important information for you to know as you think about how you're working with your library, just knowing what the composition of your user population is. When you're looking at languages that you need to add or the services that you need to add. There's information about the primary care physicians and dentists available within this county, and this data can be downloaded. So if I needed a list of the drug and alcohol treatment facilities, I can view this in a table, or I can download this data, and I can download this table simply and easily. Access to health insurance, medically underserved areas, disease prevention and screening, information about the health behavior in Prince George's County, fruit and vegetable consumption, general health, again, morbidity, mortality, cancer rates. And again, you can download these images or download the data from within this report. So disease-related, injury-related mortality, drug overdose data, food security data. Where are the farmers markets? Where are the SNAP retail locations? What percentage of the families within this county are receiving food stamp and SNAP benefits? So, information about crime, educational attainment. Again, this is data that we were looking at when we were viewing the map, but this really gives us the ability to quickly and easily create a dynamic report. And as I mentioned, this is data that will be soon to be looked at for areas that you yourself will draw on the map. So information about employment trends, industry sectors within this area, the housing stock, and more. So be sure to let me know if you have a question or if you wanted to take a look at a sample report for your county. I'd be happy to provide you with that information. But those reports are really, two of the most used by our public libraries, and good for you to know. It's something that you could provide for your patrons and your users. So keep that in mind. Let's go back to maps because I've been showing you data related to demographics, income and spending, education. One of our growing areas of data that you probably just saw from that community health report is health data. So data that gives you information about the health status or health behavioral risk factors related to health, access to medical care. So one of our newer data sets is life expectancy data. You can take a look at life expectancy at birth, remaining life expectancy, not the most uplifting data set or data layer, but still quite fascinating. If I'm doing this for Shreveport, I can see the life expectancy in this area of Shreveport is a whole lot better than if you're born here. You can't change where you're born. So, but it's amazing that you can see in this area, it's 83, 71, 69. So really fascinating data. And I believe that most librarians are as fascinated by data as I am. So take a look at that. There's information about birth and prenatal care, information about births by young mothers. So if I wanted to see where there are areas of young mothers within a specific area, I can pull that out. Now this is at a county level, but still allows you to see. We actually had a university who used this data about where there are a large number of young mothers, and they also used that to upload their data they used our data layer of grocery retail locations, and that's where they decided to set up diaper banks. So there's some really nice ways to serve your community while you're using this data. So, and really, really fascinating information. Also on health data, you'll see information, and this is another one of our data sets that's fascinating related to opioid use. So if I'm just going to take a look at the state of Pennsylvania, I'll pull that out. Maybe want to take a look at the overdose rates or the prescription rates. Here you can see the number of prescriptions written per 100 people. And we see for this area in Southwest Pennsylvania, the prescription rate per 100 people is 128 or 129 per 100 people. We have a fascinating blog that one of our data analysts did write about that and how that isn't necessarily related to opioid overdoses. So take a look at that. There's lots of information here about not only opioid use, but also, binge drinking, smoking rates. And you'll notice that this is both from CDC data, but also 500 cities data that came from PolicyMap and the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. We can take a look at binge drinking, and this is for small geographies. So if I'd wanted to go ahead and look at maybe just, we'll take a look at Lexington, Kentucky. We can zoom in. And we can see that this is for very small geographies. So there's small area estimates down to the census tract for a lot of this health data, which is one of our strengths, really. Information related to overweight and obesity, obese population, childhood obesity, influenza, HIV, a lot of the data that you saw when you were looking at the community health report. So in addition, I believe one of the main points that I had decided that we would focus on in this webinar was taking a look at some of the unique data that's here for PolicyMap. One of the things that has been a hot data set, or that a lot of our public libraries and government organizations have been looking at, are opportunity zones. So I have to spell that correctly. I also wanted to show you that you can always look for a specific data set or data point by typing it within the Find button. But here, if I wanted to take a look at eligibility status for qualified opportunity zones, I can do this as well. Again, I can download this and see exactly what's there. So here I can take a look at opportunity zones, and then there's another great set, and that's the social needs index, and that's actually within the analytics page. So you'll notice that you can take a look at areas of social need for a specific city, state, township, county. And if you click on any one of these, it's going to give you exactly how this index was calculated. So it's going to show me the number of people who are living in poverty in this area, homeowners who are burdened, renters who are burdened, working age people who are not in the labor force, people who have less than a high school degree. So this is available, this social needs index for the entire United States. You can see what's there. There we go. So there are a few things that I haven't shown you, and I also encourage you, if you have questions as we're going through using PolicyMap, that you feel free to submit your questions. But keep in mind that not only can you do these maps where you can take a look at a specific area and you can overlay it with a specific data layer and these data points, you can also create a 3-layer map. And from this 3-layer map, you can find hotspots or areas where you want to make an impact, or where you have an area of concern. So again, let me go in and let's take a look at Shreveport, Louisiana again. And for here, maybe we wanted to take a look at the percent of the population that is over 65. So we'll take a look at 65 or older, and you'll notice that everything's purple. Well, what I can do is I can either use the slider, or I can put in a specific, let me see, we'll put in 30%, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit because I'm not seeing much, and maybe I want to go and I want to adjust that. Maybe we'll say 20% of the population, 65 or older. And then maybe I wanted to take a look at people who are in poverty in that age group. So people in poverty. And for here, I can go ahead and maybe I want to take a look at, again, 30%. And maybe I'm concerned about the people within those areas who are over 65, who are impoverished, who are suffering from high blood pressure or hypertension. So here I can take a look at the estimated percent of adults ever diagnosed with high blood pressure. And I can, play with this a little bit. Maybe I wanted to say at least 10%. And I can drag this map and take a look and see exactly what's there. I have these 3 areas of concern. In this area, I have almost 30% of the population is above 65, almost 35% of the population are living in poverty, and over 63% of the people have been diagnosed with high blood pressure. So it just gives me some ideas of what's going on within these communities, what types of resources they need. So it's really a way for you to figure out exactly what's happening within an area. So keep in mind that these 3-layer maps are a great way to figure out what's happening. So I wanted to show you that you do have the ability to do that and really pinpoint areas of concern, zoom out and figure out exactly what's happening in a specific area. So with that in mind, I also wanted to show you that you can add in maybe community health centers and lookalikes. So do the people in these neighborhoods have access to community health centers or lookalikes? It doesn't look that way. So really just, an interesting way to see exactly what's happening and what types of services are available. Okay, so I think that probably one of the more interesting applications for public libraries when it comes to PolicyMap is the ability to upload your own data. So it might be your patron data, it might be your location information, it might be data related to programs that you're planning on. But I wanted to just show you that we do have a data loader. We even have some of our clients who use this as an inexpensive way to geocode their own data. So let's go back, and I'm going to take a look at the Chicago area again. And we're taking a look at the social needs index. But what we might want to do is take a look at where our libraries are in relation to the social needs index. So you have the ability to upload your own data, or you can add points of data directly to a map. So I can upload a spreadsheet of data points. Here in this case, I'm going to upload a spreadsheet that I've created of Chicago libraries. And I can either download these points and get the longitude and latitude for these points, or I can go ahead and load this on my maps page. So it's a way for me to see exactly where the Chicago area libraries are and where they show up on the map, related to any one of our data layers as well. So keep in mind that you might have specific data layers that you want it to add to a map, and you can do that. You can even put labels there that will show you exactly what's there. So if I was interested in seeing, what's happening at the Berwyn Public Library, or actually it looks like the Douglas branch, there's a higher need for the social needs index is higher there. The South Chicago branch, all very fascinating. So I wanted to show you that you can simply and easily upload data points. And as we mentioned before, we do have tutorials and guides to help you to do that as well. So if I'd wanted to share this, and I mentioned before that you can download data, but you can also share this data. I have a custom region, so I want to go ahead and clear my location, I think. And then I can share. Oops. Oh, it looks like this is one of our data sets that can't be shared that way. But I can show you for another data set. But keep in mind that you can share data. And let me go ahead and I'll choose one of those. Here's another interesting data set. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at, we'll take a look at Crestline, Ohio. Oops. And for here, I can take a look at, we looked at the Gini Index before, but let's do it again. Take a look at that. We'll pull out this. If I'd wanted to share this information, again, I can share it. You'll notice that I have a link that can be used. I can embed this map. I can email this map, or I can even share it via social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. So keep in mind that we do have ways for you to share that data. So I feel like we've had a lot of time to just go through and give you an idea of what the data is, the breadth of the data that's there. I would highly encourage anyone who has an interest to please get in touch. We'd be happy to offer you a free trial. We'd be happy to answer any questions. And I certainly hope that you have learned a lot about some of the information that's available that could help you to better serve your community. So once again, please be sure to let me know if you have any questions. I understand that public libraries have budgets that are constrained, and PolicyMap certainly does try to be economical. So we wanted to make sure that you know that we are willing to work with you and provide any answers to your questions that you may have. Do I have any questions? Well, I thank you all so much for joining me today, and I hope you found this to be informative and helpful, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. Please take care.